You are listening to the Keenan Vision podcast, produced by Salesforce Devops.net. This is episode 10, broadcast Tuesday, September 6th, 2022. Copado, Salesforce Devops top product demo with Vern. Welcome everybody to the Keenan Vision podcast. And today this is an episode where we're looking at one of the Salesforce Devops.net top products contenders. And that is Copado today. And today we have a demo star from Copado. His name is Nolan Larrabee. And Nolan, welcome.
Thank you, Vernon. Happy to be here.
Hey, so tell us, give us a few minutes about how you came to Copado and what you do there.
Yeah, my journey started many years ago. I got my start in the Salesforce ecosystem as a business analyst. Building new innovation, supporting implementations, gathering documentation, and doing so as a low-code utilizer on Salesforce's UI. And as my experience inside of Salesforce evolved, I grew into become a Salesforce implementation and technical consultant, and formally got me here at Copado as a senior sales engineer, helping teams on the technical side evaluate our solution to drive their digital transformation.
Awesome. So you basically dig in with a sales prospect and kind of help them make sure that they understand the capabilities of the system and whether it can solve their problem.
Absolutely, yeah. Understanding the needs, the challenges that they face with what they're developing on, the current solutions that they're building, the current projects that they're working on, and tailoring a demonstration to show the value of Copado, and even taking them through guided proof of concepts, proof of values.
Okay, so why don't you give us a treat of that right now and kind of tell us what is Copado?
Yeah, really, I can do this with sharing my screen as well, but Copado is a Salesforce DevOps and testing platform. Copado was originally constructed to solve a big need in the market, right? We wanted to be able to help underpin the Salesforce DevOps lifecycle to help customers plan, build, test, release, and monitor the changes that are being done inside of Salesforce. We've done this successfully in providing acceleration of speed, but not compromising the quality with the work that's being delivered as well. And you can't have a successful CI/CD process if you're not measuring the quality and continuously improving and taking the data that's being surfaced and driving that to you.
So you're describing the how DevOps is seen as a way for big companies to help with their digital transformations, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We're wanting to enable, Salesforce enables this low coding interface, this low coding experience. We want to make sure that we're underpinning the same types of challenges that pro coding organizations are facing as well. Increased complexity, manual processes, difficulty in their coordination of teams. We're wanting to align and have a simplistic way to self-service your overall team members, regardless of their technical aptitude.
Why don't you give us an idea about the breadth of the Copado solution?
Yeah, so really there are three main solutions under our suite of applications. We have Copado Essentials, which really allows you to do org-to-org type deployments. You can go to our website, Copado Essentials, and get started in moments, connecting that into your overall organization and doing deployments across production orgs, across your sandboxes, connecting that into version control, and really giving you advantages to level you up if you've not made an investment into tooling on Salesforce.
Now, I know it's not a precise comparison, but this is kind of like what DevOps Center is all about, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of similarities, right? DevOps Center is wanting to bridge that gap and give you a better experience than change sets, a faster alternative, right? And underpin version control underneath the hood. Essentials aims to do that exact same thing. Really what we provide on top of that is the extension into more than just GitHub of a version control, but also making sure that you have an investment there in conflict awareness, differences between environments, as well as testing.
But that's more of kind of an on-ramp to the bigger suite, right? So why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, so really we see customers that are beginning their journey looking at Essentials as far as a starting point, right? We want to be able to level up. We don't like the native tooling that's provided out there in the market. We want a freemium type offer that allows us to build change, deliver that quickly without compromising quality along the way, but gives us the visibility to know where changes are. We see customers then transition into, in that enterprise kind of scale, our CI/CD solution, where we have the ability to automate behaviors, really kick that up to the next notch there, help with merging of changes, manage your environments, really build automation into your pipeline. That's really the big differentiator between our Essentials product and what we have in Copado CI/CD.
Well, why don't we just dive in, since this is the demo? Why don't you kind of show us what it's like to be an admin if you're using Copado?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to see here, if I was an admin, right? If I was somebody that was responsible for taking business requirements, I'm provisioned a set of requirements that I would be building. Where do I start, right? Where do I begin all my journey? This is a challenge that a lot of people have to face and overcome. Really what Copado allows for you to do is take advantage of some of these complexities and challenges that would traditionally bog down an administrator or a developer from making productive changes. You would think that you would start just by building a set of functionality. However, inside of Salesforce, there might be an environment that you've been assigned, a sandbox, if you will. And you might start by having to manage that environment. You might be behind on changes that another developer has recently pushed to your target environment. So you might want to be aware of those changes that are out there and reconcile your environment before you would be making changes.
Right. That's a key reason why you need Copado or another platform, because you're dealing with a dynamic platform, and Copado uses what I call metadata intelligence that constantly scan the target platforms or environments so that you know exactly what's in there.
You're spot on. What Copado does is give you visibility across your entire platform, your entire pipeline, so that you know where changes have been made, where have they not been released. It's really your air traffic control center view. We give you the awareness into each environment and give you a point and click experience to reconcile those environments, so you don't have to take a timely task like environment management, where you have to refresh environments and rebuild them. So really, step one here would be ensuring that as that admin and as that developer, we can self-service and keep our environments in sync. Where my journey then begins, because our organization, we see commonly organizations are utilizing an applicant lifecycle management tool, a Jira, right? Rally version 1, these tools that are built there to allow for you to plan your work, do your story pointing, your backlog grooming, and assign those tasks to a sprint and then to your development team. So with inside of Copado, we have integrations to ensure that once that work has been groomed and assigned to a sprint, it's easily pulled into our solution here inside of Salesforce into Copado.
So each one of these user stories you're showing right here, were they originated in Jira, or they could have been originated in Jira?
Absolutely. We have all of the infrastructure, the object structure necessary to utilize Copado if you do not have a planning tool, but we integrate with those if you do so have one. Each one of these records that you see here, Vernon, represents an independent task or requirement or ticket or incident inside of your applicant lifecycle management tool. If we click into each one of these records, we're going to see it's going to hold all of that same information that's going to inform that admin or developer of what they need to build. So I have all the detail that tells me about my project management information, the definition of my specification, what I need to build. It tells me exactly where I need to build that out, how in sync or out of sync I am, and my path to release this functionality throughout my pipeline.
Great, cool. So we have the ALM, Application Lifecycle Management features, which is really the key to organizing your DevOps process. Without it, you're kind of lost.
Absolutely.
With a big project.
You're spot on. Where do we know where to begin if we need to plan our work and then work our plan? So this is what allows for us to formulate a game plan to build our structure and make sure all these relationships make it easy to release this change.
Okay, so moving on, I think we have another persona that want to talk about, right? So let's say I'm a release manager. How's this going to actually work for me?
Yeah, so before we can get to the side of actually releasing any of our changes as admins and as developers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Once we know what functionality we have to build, we actually need to build this. We need to jump into either the CLI to programmatically write out the changes that we need to make, or because Salesforce enables such a low coding interface, I can jump into the environment where I need to make my changes. Copado's connected here to that lower dev sandbox. So I can navigate through the UI, make my changes very easily. And when I do so, those changes are against a business requirement, a project we might be working on. I need to associate that incremental change that I've made here to that business requirement. So I need to commit these changes that I've made against my user stories container. What this allows for me to do is an easy point and click experience to associate the changes that I've made to that container, to that requirement, so that I can measure the quality of that work in a very granular way and safely distribute that small container of change throughout my environments. If we're releasing more incremental or smaller changes more frequently, we have better insight into the quality, or if there are conflicts, an increased developer feedback loop so that we're not finding out about challenges as they're going into production.
So this is how you're managing what others would call branch-based development, right?
Spot on. Enabling with the same UI, easy point and click experience that Salesforce gives to interact. We're doing that in the commit process, where if you are a low coder, you might not feel comfortable being a Git expert, working inside of Git, building branches, merging changes, that XML. We're enabling the experience for you to point and click, select the work that you've done, and Copado builds your branching strategy for you. Copado your branches and merges that XML.
So underneath all of this is where the source-based philosophy comes into play, because Copado, through its own internal mechanisms, is storing the source code in all these different places and using it in these containers, as you're describing.
You're spot on. It's our secret sauce as far as building. We understand the XML structure of the Salesforce metadata. That's why standard tooling lacks in that regard. You'll experience those ghost conflicts and the lines just don't measure up. What Copado allows for you to do is select the modifications that you've made very easily, commit that work, and that's when Copado will build on behalf of you that feature specific branch, converting that one-to-one relationship between your user story and that feature specific branch that you'll use to move throughout your environments.
Good.
Beautiful. Copado gives you traceability. Copado doesn't just automate things and build your branches for you. It's going to notify you inside of the UI as well. Who's doing what, when, and where, and what metadata is being touched. We've surveyed, and the State of Salesforce Devops report has come out and said as well that merge conflicts continue to be one of the biggest issues or inefficiencies inside of Salesforce development today. So it makes sense that Copado would provide, the moment you commit your changes, giving you insight if there is any other toes you're stepping on. Am I conflicting? Is my version of this work conflicting with anybody else inside of my pipeline? I'm made aware here of my potential conflicts, where I can view where that overlap currently is. I have insight from here into my user stories changes, and I would see from here if there were any other colliding changes, where those changes are at, which components am I overlapping with, in what user story against which user. This is a proactive approach, Vernon, to where we can collaborate and reduce our conflicts. We are not reacting to a merge conflict when going into QA, for example. We are proactively measuring our quality ahead of time, shifting our operational concerns left, where we are dealing with these challenges, dealing with these inefficiencies as early as possible. Because if we're dealing with them ahead of time, they're substantially less expensive and timely to resolve.
So this is where Copado is using its ability to preview a deploy and understand if it's going to work or not. Is that?
Absolutely. You're previewing the quality without ever having to release the change to know if you're going to have a problem.
Right.
That's where the testing phase, the build gives us information into what are we going to associate into this container? Where we get into that measuring of what has been produced. Is it going to give me issues when I release this moving forward? We want to, again, shift our operational concerns left, where I might want to either manually or, because you're talking to Copado, automate the quality assurance tests, the quality of the work that's been produced. And we do that in an assortment of ways. Maybe that's the code coverage if we're building out Apex classes. Maybe that's static code analysis because we want to understand the structure or quality of our code base changes. Just like you mentioned, Vernon, is this going to successfully be released? Validation deployments will tell us that, right?
Right.
But what if we wanted to understand and get into the space of a QA individual? If we wanted to not only measure and run a test case, is what I just built going to satisfy functionally that the system will still perform? This is an advantage, a strong advantage of Copado, where we have the ability to write test cases against our changes, where we can write or record the steps that we're clicking around through the UI to build a test case. If I just built functionality to have a lead conversion, I may want to click around to show that that lead will be converted and this new pick list value that I've added is not breaking my overall regression suite. So Copado allows for us to build this new innovation, test against this, and as we're persisting this throughout our environments, making sure that this isn't breaking our overall regression.
So I just wanted to make sure that people understand where you're showing here. If we go back to the user story and kind of look at this. So the fact that they've got the user story here, which is the anchor for all the work that's essentially happening within your DevOps process, and that they have now this test tab on there that integrates with the RPA testing module, which I think we're going to see more in a second. That's Copado claims, and I think this is true, that that's a unique feature, that there's no other platform that has the ability to do that. Mainly because they have the RPA testing module capability in there. So that's great, because that, again, you mentioned shift left. I think here it's the activity, the actual test is going to happen where it normally does prior to deployment or QA acceptance. But you're defining it, you're able to define it or create the need for it to be defined as early as possible in the development process, which obviously has advantages.
You're spot on. We're wanting to measure that operational concerns from a code perspective, from a quality perspective. We want to be able to and have the ability to tell you about where your inefficiencies are at, and we can do so at the earliest of environments. We know that we're going to want to run a functional test. We know that with this association of our changes, we may now need to deploy data or custom settings or all these different types of things. Why not inform about all those challenges and changes ahead of time, where we can?
So I think we need to let's turn to the testing part, because I think we're running out of time here. It's a great demo, but let's get to the end here with the testing.
Yeah. So with inside of our testing, and you mentioned it a moment ago, RPA, robotic process automation, right? What our solution in testing allows for you to do is, against your user story, against your container of your isolated change, we can record the functional test, the end-to-end test that we would want to perform, and add that as a test case against our user story, so that as that is progressing throughout our pipeline, we're measuring that that specific test case is not breaking. So we're giving you automated regression testing at your fingertips. We're also, in that same utility, giving you the ability to automate tasks. Think about things that you can't through the metadata API complete, right? The deletion of a pick list value, for example. No solution can do that. Well, with RPA, you can add that as a post or pre-deployment activity, record the steps that you're completing, and action that a part of your change. So that's an example of RPA coming to life to perform things in an automated way that without a manual user is having to do. That has tons of risks and extrapolates based on the number of environments you have there. We automate that through Copado, through a point and click approach.
So can you show us basically how that works?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're going to see here that our solution is integrated in, and we could drop down from the test cases that are being performed here. We've pulled in an example test script. I'd have the ability to open my Q editor here. What the Q editor allows for you to do is jump into another interface here that allows for you to record a test. This will open up an actual live testing desktop. You can see examples of my other test suite, my overall test suites, and my test cases being performed here. We can see that my test recorder is now active, and I have an interface. I have a view that I could click around, and Copado is actually tracking the steps that are being performed here, whatever I'm indicating as far as my test case. This is all being tracked in our execution trace. So if I wanted to click in, log in, or call upon an actual block like logging into an environment, I can plug this in like a Lego block, log into my environment, click around to build an application, click around to convert a lead, and Copado is tracking all of these steps into actual plain text that we can edit from the screen. And once we save our test cases here, these get converted against the user story that we can select from and attach to our container.
And because it's RPA and has certain features such as visual capabilities, it's not limited with like other testing tools such as Selenium to the document object model of the page. So this process is less brittle, correct? So it's not as bad every time Salesforce puts out a version change.
You are, Vernon, absolutely spot on. The DOM or the XPath behind the page at every Salesforce release shifts. One of the advantages with our solution is that we're not looking for that fixed point on the page that is going to shift, right? But then you have to maintain your existing test scripts.
And then you have this English-like language that's actually used to store it, and you can edit it and alter it that way.
You're absolutely spot on. A point-and-click experience, plain text, and looking for the actual text on the page rather than a fixed point.
Yeah, that's great. That's all integrated in the platform. So I think we got a few more minutes here. Is there a final bit of demo?
Yeah, last piece here, right? We've tested change. Where does it need to go, right? We need to deliver that value.
Right. Finally ready for release.
Finally ready for release. And how do we do this? With that same point and click experience, that same low code behavior, we can now deliver this functionality, not just to our upper environments, but deliver that functionality to other team members that are working in their own environments. So once, to the best of our ability, we've built our change, we've tested it, we've measured our operational concerns, all we have to do is mark this as a promotable record. From here, we can jump back to that same tab you saw earlier, our pipeline, our air traffic control center view, because now I can release multiple containers in a single release where I can cherry pick and determine which of these user stories do I want to progress to my next environment. I can bundle these changes together and release to my next environment. Now, an advantage to our solution as well is these changes do not get locked together. Even though they're released together, they keep their independence to where if one of these user stories needs to be held back, we don't have to forego and hold back the other requirements to do so. The other advantage here is as those other team members are now taking advantage of your work, want to sync up their environments, we can back promote our changes at the click of a button. So no more lengthy refreshes, no more days to wait to rebuild our environments. We are keeping our environments in sync at the click of a button or automated through Copado.
And this is when I talked to Ted Elliott, your CEO, once, and he reminded me that this is what lets your customers spend weekends with their families.
Absolutely. He'll tell you we're in the business of reducing divorces. We are getting people to have their nights and weekends back. Right. We are enabling the ability to reduce your need to manage things and not be productive. I've talked to a customer. I'll give you a quick 30-second here, Vernon. I talked to a customer, large communications organization. This one individual was spending 80% of their working week rebuilding environments for their team of 15 people, right? He had a single team and he was spending 80% of his time rebuilding environments because each developer had their own box, right? That's time that we gave back to focus on productive work, to to review the changes that are being developed, et cetera, et cetera.
Cool. Okay, so we're wrapping up. So I want to just ask you, kind of as a pre-sales engineer or sales engineer, you get involved in a lot of you see the sale happen, the customer makes a commitment to Copado, and then something happens. So why don't you kind of give us a little explanation about what happens next when somebody decides they want to use Copado?
Yeah. Once we've gotten to the point, and we're very passionate about making sure that we're building trust with an organization as they're coming online, right? We want to make sure that one of the biggest links in the entire chain is that process. How are you onboarded? How are you enabled, right? Are we continuously improving, right? So we're not just looking to stand up a tool and walk away, right? With Copado, we have an entire enablement team that has resources like our success community that is purposeful to guide you, to enable you, to level you up and have continuous growth.
Oh, well, let's spend a minute or two on the Academy.
Yeah. So our success community and our overall academy, if you're a fan of Trailhead, we have something very similar where we have certification paths, we have learning workshops where you can join. We have sales engineers like myself that walk you through monthly how you can become certified and go through a live course to understand a trial version of Copado. How do you build, commit, deploy, measure quality, deal with conflicts? So there's plenty of self-paced learning that you can utilize from our academy to become certified, or you can join our live workshops and get hands-on time with our team. The whole goal, Vernon, across the board is to make sure that people are enabled to know that there's a better way of developing change on Salesforce out there, and they don't have to compromise their nights and weekends to do so.
So with the Academy, I just wanted to emphasize that there through a free login, you can actually provision your own version of Copado and use it to kind of test it out.
Absolutely. If you want to have a playground in any one of our suites and our robotic testing and our Copado CI/CD or even Essentials, across the board, you can be up and running in about 5 minutes with a playground end to end to measure your actual objectives.
And that also includes the robotic testing. You can dip into that as part of the Essentials freebie. Correct?
Absolutely. You can create trial accounts through all solutions, fully integrated, and begin to actually take advantage and write your own test cases to prove out how truly easy that process is.
And this is a real free account where if you don't want to talk to a sales guy, you don't have to, right?
Totally free account. No problems necessary. You go through a process, pointing and clicking, generate your account, just like you would go in and have a playground through Salesforce. You are requesting that, creates the account information, and you're off to the races.
Cool. Okay, Nolan, this has been fantastic. I mean, I learned something about Copado today, and I hope everybody got the sense of, if you go look at the Salesforce Devops.net website, you go look at the map, the thing where I illustrate all the different parts, you'll see that Copado pretty much covers almost all of them. So if you're that big company looking for a big solution, Copado, as the industry leader and right now in terms of sales, is definitely doing that. So Nolan, I wanted to thank you for coming on today. And I just wanted to say, see you next time on the Keen Vision podcast.
Awesome. Vernon, I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this edition of the Keen Vision podcast. Please come visit the Salesforce Devops.net website and sign up for email notifications of significant updates. Thanks to 10 Ton Chicken for the music, which is available on iTunes. And also be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review about how well we did on this podcast.